Today, our Bible study is Into the Light, Finding Hope Through Prayers, Ab Lament, and the End of Lament. And if we will open with a prayer, I will read the prayer from page 83. God of heaven and earth, you created this world and called it good. There are things in this world that are still good. There are other things that will not be fully good again until the day your kingdom comes. Help us to wait patiently, but not too patiently, for that day to come. Amen. So,
Amen.
God.
All right. First thing I'm going to do is do a screen share here. See if we can get going. There we go. And somewhere. All right. As Jameis said, this month's lesson's title is The End of Lament, and it is the end of our study for the year. It is the 9th lesson in 10 months, and just wanted, for some reason, as I'm looking here, let me see, I do not have the image of the rest of you here. Am I even showing up on the screen at all?
Yes.
Yeah. On the right.
Okay. All right. Well, you can see me then. But I would just ask, we've been studying lament for 10 months. I know this sounds like a loaded question, but what else has been going on for the last 10 months?
More lament.
First thing came to my mind was that P word, pandemic. Anybody want to comment either on the images that you see here on the screen, or what these last 10 months have taught you?
Is that a ginkgo leaf on there?
Looks like it.
So what is the meaning? Is there a meaning to associate with the ginkgo and it flowing out of the urn? I didn't look into that.
Here at the front of the book, with each picture, it tells a little description, and it says that I can't pronounce it. This vase pours ginkgo leaves, and the ginkgo biloba is among the most of ancient trees, having been found in fossil form and dated to more than 200 million years ago.
Wow. Okay.
It talks about the vase too, but I'm not going to answer that.
I haven't really appreciated Zoom, because that's the main way I've been in contact with people. Well, you got the telephone, but otherwise, I sure have been grateful for that. I know some people, especially schools, they're on it so much, they got Zoom fatigue. Well, I haven't been on that much. I appreciate and take it for granted now. And you think 18 months to a year, I mean, we were still trying to do Skype and FaceTime, now we just, okay, let's Zoom it, so I appreciate that part.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you there. Well, I got a little bit of both. I appreciate it, and I'm fatigued by it.
Yeah, you're on a lot more.
Anything in particular you think about that you've learned about your faith or your community, your church over the last 10 months?
I think because of Zoom in the Sunday schools and your Wednesday services that you all have offered, I have learned much more about the Bible in the past year than I may have ever learned. And just, I really have an appreciation for all that you all have done, and somebody has orchestrated and taught the classes. And it's Sunday school has been very good on Zoom, I felt.
Okay.
Ours has gone well too. And on Sunday night, we have another time for discussion and chat. And that varies, we'll have 28, 30 on Sunday morning and probably 9 or 12 on Sunday evening. And it varies who's there on Sunday evening. But through that Sunday evening, we've really gotten to know each other better. Topics will come up, and there's been a lot of sharing going on, personal stories that I don't think we would have learned otherwise. So that's good. For me, it was good.
Okay.
Well, looking at our Sunday school class, I see people on there that I never would have met because they don't live in Greeneville anymore. And they've contributed a lot to our class.
Okay. Anybody else?
We all want connections, I think, is what I think. Connections are important.
Definitely. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to move on into more of the lesson then, and just say that if I can get this to work. There we go. All right. So just a very brief review on the lament that we have studied. In August, it was the heart of lament that we talked about. In September, I think it was lamenting together, women's lament in October, and in November, we talked about lamenting death, life lamenting in January, and in February, the lament over the city. March, I think, was recognizing that creation itself laments. Last month, it was acknowledging the lamenting that God does over the brokenness of the world. And of course, as Jama said, our lesson for today is about the end of lament, not just the end of our study, but talking about how it is that lament itself, we understand how it will come to an end one day. And so Isaiah is one of the primary texts, and I think it's chapter, what is it, 24, 5? Yeah, 25. Okay. There are 4 chapters in Isaiah 24 through 27 that scholars have it often called the apocalypse, Isaiah's apocalypse. But that word, I think, has been misconstrued and misunderstood for many, many years by lots of folks who are in church, because while we tend to think of it as some scary nightmare of how everything's going to come to a crashing end, the word really simply means a revelation to and from the prophet, a prophetic revelation. And I suppose one of the other ways you could describe that would be to say apocalypse is someone saying, hey, here is what God is doing. Let's pay attention to that. So more than just some doomsday fearful thing, it is actually something that is given to the people for their advantage and for their well-being. And I think that's what Isaiah is trying to do here in chapter 25. But even though our text is from chapter 25, the theme, and especially the symbols of the text in chapter 25, go all the way back to the very beginning of Isaiah, back to chapter 2. And so the author of the text reminded us that verses 2 and 3 in chapter 2 sort of set the stage for this whole vision that Isaiah gives in chapter 25. So I want to just look at those 2 verses very quickly and examine the the connections and the words that are important for chapter 25. Chapter 2:2 says, "In days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be raised above the hills. All the nations shall stream to it." Obviously, there's the repetition of the mountains and the high spot, and particularly for the culture of the Israelites, mountains were a very important part. Not only were they perceived to be somehow physically closer to God, the heavenly realm, but they were also a fortress in a safe place. So the safest cities were built on the highest hills in the region. And so Isaiah is already lifting up this idea of mountains. And the third verse says, "Many peoples shall come and say, 'Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth instruction, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem.'" So again, there's the high part, the going up the mountain, so that we may be taught and so that we may walk in God's paths. Now, let's look at the text from Isaiah 25, which is, interestingly, a text that is often used in the church's celebration of All Saints' Day, a remembrance of those who have gone before us. But this text envisions what you would call the final redemption of God's people in terms of this idea of some big, powerful cosmic battle that God has with the forces of chaos, and that God in this battle proclaims salvation. And the end of this battle is going to be a glorious banquet that is held on Mount Zion, and that is the mountain that the Israelites knew and remembered. And that will take place after God has destroyed all that seeks to oppress the faithful of God. Then Isaiah says God is going to host a feast, a banquet for all of those who have been delivered. And as we read the text, you'll see, contrary to all of the healthfulness and the diets that we try to put ourselves on, this is a banquet for those who have already been starved. So it is a banquet that describes fat as something that is beneficial and nutritious for people who have done without it for so long. And also well-aged and distilled wines for the celebration. So that's sort of how this is going to be set up. And the interesting part of, you remember, Isaiah is written to a people who are in exile. So this is a very sharp contrast to what is going on with the people who hear these words. So there's this final redemption with a cosmic battle on Mount Zion. There's going to be a feast that follows the redemption. And then in this culture that is hearing this, who has known nothing but despair and destruction for pretty much all of their lives, Isaiah declares that there will be an unexpected and an exuberant joy that comes. And this is the hope to which the people are called. So let's look at this primary text from Isaiah from the 25th chapter. "On this mountain, the Lord of hosts will make for all peoples a feast of rich food, a feast of well-aged wines, of rich food filled with marrow, of well-aged wines strained clear." So you hear those echoes from chapter 2. You've got the mountain of the Lord, you've got rich food, a feast of well-aged wines. And so this rich food that nourishes those who have been starved is clear strained wines that don't turn to vinegar if they sit for a few days, as well as the rich marrow of the bone that provides them with much nourishment that they need. The text goes on to say, and he will destroy on this mountain the shroud that is cast over all peoples, the sheet that is spread over all nations. He will swallow up death forever. So this is the power and the cosmic battle that takes place. The shroud and the sheet are going to be destroyed, and death itself is going to be swallowed up. Isaiah says, forever. Then the Lord God will wipe away the tears from all faces, and the disgrace of his people he will take away from all the earth, for the Lord has spoken. It will be said on that day, lo, this is our God. We have waited for him so that he might save us. So to the people in exile, they are reminded that the tears on their faces will be wiped away, the disgrace will be taken away, and the waiting will finally be rewarded because God is indeed going to save God's people. Now, the author points out, and others have pointed out, that in just these 3 verses, which we've already read 6 through 8, before I get to the very last verse, there is a 5-fold repetition of the word all that is extremely important. So this liberation then extends to all people. You see all the times that all is used here, 5 different times in these 3 verses. So it's a very inclusive nature of the vision that reminds the people of Israel, as well as us who read the text now, that when things are most distressing, it is very important to look out beyond ourselves and beyond our immediate circumstances to find ways to include and invite others to the table. And as the people watch the drama unfold between God and this death on the cosmic big screen, God's aching and tender side really emerges in this story. Imagine God looking into the eyes of dirty-faced children and broken men and careworn women, wiping away the tears and any disgrace that they feel. And imagine standing there in that awe and being flooded with relief and joy. And then people saying, as the text says, this is our God. This is the Lord for whom we have waited. Let us be glad and rejoice in his salvation. For the hand of the Lord will rest on this mountain. So this is the rich promise for those who have waited. They will indeed be glad and rejoice because the Lord's hand will rest on the mountain. And that is the promise of hope that is given to the people. And this text is given to a people who have not yet experienced what is being promised here. In some ways, perhaps we can understand what that is like in our own lives. But here is this stunning articulation of hope. But it's not yet real life for the folks, but it is the promise that is given to them to help them continue in their hope for the future. And that's part of what apocalyptic messages are. They are a promise from the prophet to continue to hold on, to continue to trust, and continue to work for and wait for God to bring redemption. Because this radical otherness of who God is that the people can't even imagine is described by the prophet as what is going to bring about the redemption. So the text then that is also listed to go with that is from the book of Revelation. And if there's ever a book that has been, in my perception, misunderstood and misconstrued in its interpretation, it is the book of Revelation, particularly because of the understanding of what apocalyptic literature is, because there are so many people who only read it as some sort of predicting of the future. And I really don't believe that is what it is. So there's your not equal sign for all you mathematical folks, in case you wanted to know what that was. I really think that the book of Revelation is written to describe the present that is going on to the people that it was written to. Not some wispy prognostication of what we would like to have happen at some point in the future, or even what we think God is going to do at some point in the future, a distant point in the future. But in fact, this is the bold truth of God's intentions for the thriving and the caring of the community and the entire cosmos in the here and now. I think that's more about what Revelation and apocalyptic literature is about. So it's about describing the present, but it's also about ascribing the author. That is to say, who is it that's going to do this? Answering the who question. And the third thing I think the book of Revelation does, in addition to describing and ascribing, is it does some prescribing. Where the writer of Revelation is writing a prescription, if you will, a prescription of hope for the people. And that is answering the how and the why questions. How is it going to be done, and why is it going to be done? And hope is the answer, and love for why it is going to be done. When I read the book of Revelation and hear people talk about that, and I may have spoken about this in some other circumstances, but I'm always reminded of when I first learned about what was going on in South Africa in the late 1980s, because we had a seminary classmate who was working on his PhD, his doctorate degree in sacred theology, who was from South Africa, and he and his family, his wife and his daughter, lived in the same seminary apartment village that we did. And we got to know them very well. And he would tell me about what was going on. And this is as the apartheid government in South Africa was slowly being dismantled. And Maki was a Black South African. He had been a pastor there for a number of years, and he was coming back here to work on a degree so he could go back home. And that's what he did, and is still there today. But he would tell me, he said, you know, the government in South Africa is monitoring our phone calls, and they are listening when people from South Africa call the United States. They listen to the phone calls, and they are looking for some reason to come and arrest people who are struggling against apartheid. And I said, well, how do you find out what's going on? And he said, oh, well, they call and tell me. I said, well, doesn't that get them in trouble? And he said, no. He said, we use the language of Scripture. We talk about Pharaoh and the Exodus and those sorts of things. And so he said, we know who we're talking about, but we're using biblical characters and biblical stories to describe exactly what's going on in our world. And number one, we're not using the names of people in the government. And number two, some of them don't even know the story, so they don't even know we're talking about them. But in some ways, I think that's the way the book of Revelation was written, as a way to secretly get a message out to people about what was going on in the here and now, not predicting something in the future, but saying this is what God is doing right now. So without further ado, let's read this brief text from the 21st chapter of Revelation. John says, from his exile on Patmos, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. So there's a new heaven and a new earth. This is not about the destruction of the current heaven and earth, but a new one that is going to come down from heaven, a holy city, John says. And it goes on to say, I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, see, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them, and they will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them. Now, one of the words that is used in this text, you see, we translate it in English as home. The home of God is among mortals. The actual Hebrew word there is tabernacle. So you think about the tabernacle that the people in the wilderness built to travel their worship space that traveled with them. That's what the writer of John is saying, that God's tabernacle is among the people. And he also uses the same word again as a verb to say that God will tabernacle with the people, that is, dwell among them, which sounds a lot like the first chapter of the gospel according to John, because that John uses those same words to describe how the revelation of Jesus is a tabernacling of the presence of God in the midst of people. And he says, God himself will be with them. And there are a number of other translations that also add, in case the people missed it, not only will God be with them, but God will be their God. So the text goes on to say, he will wipe every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more, and mourning and crying and pain will be no more, for the first things have passed away. So the tears and death and mourning and crying, all of that will be no more, according to the writer of this letter to the people who are so desperately looking for a reason to hope.
Yes.
And the one who was seated on the throne said, see, I am making all things new. And he said, write this, for these words are trustworthy and true. Then he said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. So this is a newness that is being made. And it is beginning and ending, as in first letter of the alphabet and last letter of the alphabet, the Greek alphabet. This God says, I'm all of that. I'm the whole alphabet and all the words you can put together to make with it. To the thirsty, I will give water as a gift from the spring of the water of life. Those who conquer will inherit these things, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. Water to those who are thirsty from the spring of life, and a God who will be our God and be present, and we will be God's children. I think there are some things I have learned over this course of study, because I kind of knew what lament was, but I've learned a lot more about it, not only in these 10 months of studying it with you, but in these 10 months of living with pandemic. And there are just 4, well, maybe more than 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 things I want to tell you as my understanding of what lament really is, because the author points out that it's not just about crying, but it is about the hope that is promised afterwards. So I understood lament to be more the unmasking of broken dreams as a preparation for the arrival of something that is more deeply grounded, and it is particularly hope that is the promise that comes at the end of lament. And that for me has been critical, because I think that's what this whole story is about in our lives and in every generation's lives. And it's also about laying to rest our own expectations, because sometimes we have to set those aside in order to prepare ourselves to anticipate something that God has promised. If we let our own expectations get in the way, it's difficult to anticipate something larger than that. So then lament becomes the widening not only of our eyes, but of our minds and our hearts by the wind and even the water of a sacred unfolding that comes to us, that both nourishes us as well as gives us breath. It is, in fact, I think I will say finally, the emptying of shattered fragments that we hold in our hands in order to make room for us to hold something that is much larger and more holy. And that is my hope, that as we study lament, we recognize that the end of lament comes when we are prepared to receive the hope that is to come. Now, I have two more brief things I want to share with you, and then I'll be through. I follow a blog, and Kate Kuhlman is one of the writers of that. This is a particular blog that has pretty much a different writer every day. But the New York Times published a piece a number of weeks ago about what had been perceived, especially during this pandemic, as a mental state of health that the article's author described as languishing, a state of joylessness and aimlessness that is not quite depression, but it's certainly not happiness either. And when Kate Kuhlman read that article, she said that it sparked a collective jolt of recognition and naming the pandemic feeling that she had. And she wrote a psalm, a lament for those who languish. And Kate Kuhlman is a minister, a mom, a writer, and an advocate. That is what she describes herself as. I believe she is a Reformed Lutheran pastor. So here is her psalm for those who languish. Oh God, our brains are so tired of being on high alert. We're so exhausted by constant changing math problem of threat, so flummoxed by the difference between our own panic and our neighbors. We're exhausted with our own judgments, irate at the fogging of our glasses, puzzled by the shifting norms, the endless lack of consensus for how to do this well. We're so grieved by the profoundly broken trust that distances us from ones we're called to love, the ones called to love us. God, we're so tired. It makes it hard to focus. We're sick of cooking, sick of Netflix, sick of walking the same dog down the same streets. We're getting sick of our lives. It's hard to remember what it felt like to have ideas, to put in an effort, to rise to an occasion. We just don't care like we used to. Don't find much delight anymore. Can't remember how to grab hold of things that matter. Defog our vision, oh God. Help us to see with clarity again. Help us to look around and notice the others who are in this moment with us. Help us to name this languishing, this dogged powerlessness, and help us to feel less alone. May our participation in the community of the honest restore in us some joy, beauty in this bleakness, hope in this ongoing unknown. Call us forward. We forgot which direction that is. Help us onto our feet and summon us to toddle toward your beckoning voice like children learning to walk. Help us to trust. Help us to laugh. You are a bounteous God, and we can sort of remember bounty. We remember laughter, hugs, events. We remember wearing eyeliner and eating food that we did not prepare. We remember meeting new people. We remember the feeling of possibility. So draw near to us, O bounteous God, in this unexpected, interminable moment. Gift us with what we admit we fail to summon for ourselves: a grateful heart, a trusting spirit, a peace-filled mind. Surprise us once again with your daily graces. Bird song, a sprouted seed, a laughing child, a cup of coffee. Remind us of your cosmic care, of the largeness of your world, your timeless purpose, the goodness of your promise. You love us, you see us, you keep us. Thanks be to you, oh God. And now, the author of the lesson mentioned the song, Lift Every Voice and Sing, which has often been called the Negro National Anthem. I did not know that it was first performed in 1900 at a segregated school in Jacksonville, Florida, by a group of 500 children who were celebrating the anniversary of the birth of President Lincoln. Apparently, the author James Weldon Johnson wrote this at a crucial time in American history. He was an activist, and this was the time when Jim Crow was replacing slavery, and particularly African Americans were searching for an identity of their own. He wrote this as a poem, and then he asked his brother, John Johnson, to set it to music. So I want to close with you hearing this song.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stormy the road we trod, bitter the chase we run, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat and on a weary feet, come to the place for which our parents sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading a path through the blood of the Scion. Now from the gloomy past till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is fast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far.
Thank you, Todd, very much for the whole series. It's been very enlightening to learn how lament actually is so much a part of our everyday life. And something that I guess from Revelations that you read today that really makes me have hope at the end of lament is, see, the home of God is among mortals, and God will dwell with them. So, thank you again. Okay, Dot, do you have a PW report?
I have a PW report. Before I start that, I want to say thank you, Todd, for doing this one. And have you gotten the book for the new study?
I have not seen that yet.
What my grandmothers taught me, learning from the women in Matthew's genealogy of Jesus. So I will be ordering this book, and it'll be in the office this summer, and you can start picking them up. Okay. I put a change of address when I reordered Horizon for you. So I hope are you getting the books?
Yes.
Okay,
We
then
are.
you should get this. Yeah, it came last month. Okay. On PW's treasury report, didn't have a lot of activity last month, but the balance in our checking account is $8,679.61, and the savings $17,287.27. So we still have a healthy balance for Ruth's blessings and quite a few memorials and so forth that will be used in the future. So I guess that's all I have for the treasury's report. The other thing that will be going on with PW, we have been asked to do a breakfast on July the 4th, which is a Sunday morning from 8 to 10 for the USS Greeneville group that's going to be having their 25th reunion here. So we will need help on July the 3rd and July the 4th. So anybody and everybody that's going to be in town, we could use you. Okay. So that's really all I have today, Jana.
Okay, thank you, Dot. Ruth's blessings are just going right along. We did deliver in May to Plaza Towers, and I spoke with the resource ladies in the city and the county school systems, and they will continue to give items out through the summer. So that is that program will stay the same as I guess it has been for the past year or so. And they're so thankful that those resources that we provide are available for them to give out. And one of the resource ladies said, you know, you just need to know that the families that we give these items to are identified as families that are in great need of these resources. And she said it is such a blessing to them. So thought I would pass that along. Caring for others is Sissy Kite takes care of that. She sent her report in, and she had a beginning balance of $797.43. She paid $120 out for 3 families with they needed help either with water and electric. And the ending balance is $677.43. Are there any questions about that? Dot, I guess we talked about this last month, but we will visit in a few months where we might spend some of the money that might be setting in this account.
Yeah. The budget amount is $825 per quarter that we had been given Sissy. In the first quarter, she didn't need any of it. So we transferred that $825 to Ruth's Blessings. So we'll revisit that again in June to see what we want to do with the second quarter's $825, but it will be helping something in the community.
Okay, great. Thank you. Miss Barbie,
Yes, ma'am.
how is sunshine, lease coin, Christmas, and how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Christmas and lease coin are the same at 40. Sunshine has increased to 185.27.
Wow. Okay, great. Thank you. The new business is shut-ins or the elder lights. I don't have a report on that other than what I guess Jack James has moved to the Life Care Center on Crum Street. And Dora Harmon does enjoy phone calls. Terry Maxwell had cataract surgery. And Amy, maybe you could report on maybe who you check on. I don't really have any other information about the elder lights. I know Joyce checks with people, so maybe you two could give us some information.
I haven't spoke with Tina recently, Tina Walters, but the last time I talked with her, she was doing well. Her surgery had gone well, and she was supposed to go to a new doctor in Morristown, and her daughter was helping her with that, but she seemed like she was doing well. And then Annie Canceller is my other person, and I haven't spoken with her recently.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Yes.
the people at Morning Point, this last time, what, 10 days ago or something, I took a gift to each of them. This time, Butch and I just paid for it instead of charging the women. She did little containers of cheese straws. And then I got stamps, a couple of pens, a notepad, and then some cards. I got each person a get well, thinking of you, sympathy, and birthday. Now whether these ladies can use them or not, I don't know. You know, and they might not have, but I thought, okay, if someone want to send something, or if they want to give them away there at Morning Point. I heard from Dora, who appreciated it, but Dora's her hands are so bad now she can't even write. She just can't even sign her name. So, and Mary Bordenise called me one time when I wasn't home and left a message saying thank you and wanted to say come for a visit. And I think what I'm going to try to do is see about visiting some people over there on the porch. You know, you can set up a time. So any of you who know any of those folks, I'm sure they would like to see some others.
How many people do we have at Morning Point?
5, I guess. Okay, we got Dora. Okay, help me out.
Mary Neese,
Mary Bordenise.
Nancy Thomas,
Nancy
Nancy Thomas.
Thomas, Judy Poinsett, and
Joe.
Frances Doyle. That's 5, right? Yeah, they're 5. So I've been getting over there some kind of gift every few months. And often it's been flowers or something. I was just trying to be a little different. So I called over there and I asked before the last gift, somebody, I said, we've been bringing flowers. I'm da, da, da. Can you give me an idea? No, I don't have any idea. Maybe you could call back and ask somebody else. Oh, well. But I know Dot had told me that she thought it'd be good to get some stationery to Judy Poinsett. And so I did get her a set of stationery and pens and so that sort of started me on the idea of, okay, I'll get everybody some cards. But and they might be no, anyway. It was an effort, and nobody's called me. Like y'all know, some of you know Sophie Simon from the past. I sent her some cards one time, and Sophie was famous for you taking cards that had already been used and cutting the name off and sending it back to you. You know? So I sent some new cards with stamps and the whole deal, and she contacted me and said, what'd you do this for? What are these things for? These cards? Oh, well. So maybe some of those ladies feel the
You had to
same.
know Sophie.
All right. Made no sense to her. All right.
I had our
Thing I would do.
I had our children on Wednesday nights. They decorated crosses, and I was going to take them and give them to the people there at Morning Point. So you said there's 5.
Right.
And if I make an appointment, then I'll be able to see them. Like if I wanted to give them
Well,
to them.
I have just delivered things to the door and asked people if they would, take them. I had the names where they go. One person knows who I am. I don't know who she is. Oh, I know who you are. I know where you're from. I know your ladies, but not everybody does. So I try to have the person's name on there and who it's from. Yeah, you could call over there and see if you could.
Okay.
Maybe you could ask, can those ladies meet me on the porch instead of having an appointment to go to everybody's room.
Okay.
I just check over there. And if the first person doesn't know anything, call back another time.
Okay.
Amy, I would love to go with you if you want company when you make that trip.
Okay, that'd be
Yes.
great.
Oh, yes, I'd love to go and visit.
Okay,
Good weather now.
great.
Yeah, Jama knows her way around that place. She knows everybody. So
Thank you.
yeah.
All right. Is that all then that we know about the Elder Lights? Todd, do you have anything that you could share about anyone on that list?
I don't think I have anything else to add. I mean, I do talk to, I do get Dora every once in a while, and as Joyce said, not only her hands, but her shoulders and her knees are not doing well. So she's not very mobile, but her mind is still sharp, and she's always asking about how everybody else is doing.
Some of y'all may remember Ronnie Whalen that's
Yeah.
been in the church, many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
Ronnie lives in an apartment house right behind me. And I
Oh,
hadn't checked on him in a while. And I did call last week, and his phone number was not a good number. So his nephew, who lives across the street in the circle up there, Spencer Smith, takes care of him. So I called and left a message, do you have a good phone number for Ronnie? And a few minutes, Ronnie called me. And he has home health and physical therapy coming, and he is not very mobile, or I guess doesn't go out anymore except to the doctor. But that's Ronnie Whalen.
is he one of our members or we should pay
Yes.
attention to?
Well, I think he's on the list that he gets cards, monthly and so forth, but he would never receive visitors, I mean, I used to, tell him to meet me across at the fence, because there's a fence in my backyard, and I would, give him food and so forth if I had something, or he would just visit with us. But and he walked quite a bit in the neighborhood, but he's not able to do that anymore. So he's a little bit difficult to talk with, but I do check on him from time to time. But yeah,
I
he's
have a
born and
different
raised in it.
question about, I know we fed the woodcutters a couple of times.
Yes.
Are we up for that, and how do we do it?
We did it again. We sent them $250, for January and February. Then I called David and sent another check for $250 for March and April.
Oh,
So
okay.
our 4 months were taken care of through monetary gifts so that they could buy food for them.
Okay. Good.
Martha Beamer, I noticed that Loretta has put her on the list. Is it just the loss that she's experienced, or does she have other family members now that are also ill?
As far as I know, it is the loss that we have reported to other folks.
Okay. And Corky Cutshaw, has she left Greeneville yet, the wife? She has, so that she's already down in Atlanta. Okay, all right. Well, I just thought I would check on these people that have the prayer requests for them. Okay, food bank needs for this month are canned beans and some dates to remember. June 5th, Bible School at Rural Resources. I will go ahead and mention, I know that Jane Poloni's son was in touch with Todd, and they do plan to have a memorial service October the 23rd. So there will be more information about that in the months to come. But I just thought that I would mention that to everyone. That would be October the 23rd. Okay, our next meeting date is August the 18th, 2021. And I guess we can maybe hope it will be at the church in the Simon Room. And so does anyone else have anything to that they want to talk about or bring up or mention? No? Okay. I will close in prayer. And we do need to keep not only these people on our list, on the prayer list in our prayers, but we'll also, Ronnie is someone to mention, and each and every one of us know of people that we need to also have on that list. Okay, may we close our eyes in prayer. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, you have brought us thus far on our way. Though the road continues out before us, you give us hope. Hope that our work will bring your kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Hope that you will walk beside us every step of our journey. For your unfailing love for us and the hope you give us, we do give you thanks, O Lord. Our trust is in you. Amen. Now may we say the benediction. Go in peace, God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, preserve and keep you this day and forevermore. Amen. Hey.
Amen. Hi, Callan.
Hi, Callan. Little cute smiling face. Always good to see that little smiling face.
Hey, Kevin, say bye-bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Todd, and thanks everyone for coming, and have a great rest of the day, and see you Sunday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.